So one of the main benefits of sexual reproduction is it creates variability, allows for things to create new combinations of genes, which allows us living things to adapt to changes in their environment, whereas mitosis creates genetically identical individuals. So just some examples, obviously we look like our relatives, but not necessarily identical. You can see similarities and differences in these brothers and fathers and sons and so on. So the way that sexual reproduction produces genetic variation is through genetic recombination. Genetic recombination happens through a couple processes: independent assortment of chromosomes, where the chromosomes that you get for can vary. When the chromosomes line up at the cell plate in meiosis, they don't all line up with all moms on one side, all dads on the other, and split. It's random how they associate or how they sort into the gametes. And you can see with three different chromosomes, the different possible combinations you can have here at metaphase. Crossing over, which happens in prophase 1, where the chromosomes match up through synapsis, forming the tetrads, and then the arms can cross over one another. They can break off and exchange pieces, and that's called reciprocal translocation. Whereas sometimes you have that process happening between different chromosomes, and that can create diseases. But crossing over mixes some of mom's genes with some of dad's genes, and you get new combinations of genes on the chromosomes that didn't exist before. Which gametes take part in fertilization is random, so that creates some variability in the offspring as well. So all of this helps with driving evolution. Without sexual reproduction, evolution would be kind of a very minor process, because the only variability would happen as a result of mistakes in copying the DNA mutations. So let's talk a little bit about crossing over. So in the diagram here, you can see this is prophase 1, where you have the tetrad that's formed, you have the synapsis, you have the arms crossing over and exchanging bits of DNA. So here you can see the result of crossing over. So there's 3 steps, basically. You have to cross over. The DNA has to break at the same point on both chromosomes. And then you have to swap places and refuse those pieces of DNA onto the different chromosome. So again, it creates new combinations of traits that didn't exist in either mom or dad's cells. So independent assortment, again, we talked about this happens in metaphase. They don't have the same combination of genes as gametes from each parent. So we've got genes from mom, genes from dad. Offspring are a mixture of mom's and dad's genes. When they reproduce, they can produce unique combinations of gametes, because they'll have some of the chromosomes they inherit from their mom, some of their dad, in each of the gametes. So in humans, through independent assortment only, since we have 23 pairs of chromosomes, there are over 8 million different combinations of chromosomes in the gametes. And then you put crossing over in there, and that multiplies it even more so. So any 2 parents will produce a zygote with over 70 trillion possible diploid combinations. So in men, meiosis is going to result in sperm production. Call that spermatogenesis. It's a continuous process, begins at puberty and continues throughout life, and it produces lots and lots of sperm every day, many of which will never be used. Each ejaculation by a male contains 100 to 600 million sperm cells. In women, we call this egg production or oogenesis. Most of the eggs in a woman's body are going to go through most of meiosis 1 before they're born. And it's going to stop until puberty. And then once puberty is reached, one cell a month basically is going to finish meiosis. And one of the differences between sperm and egg production besides timing is it's an unequal division. You get most of the stuff goes into the egg, and then you have these polar bodies that are produced. And what results is at the end of meiosis, you get one egg or ovum, and you get 3 polar bodies, whereas in sperm you got 4 spermatocytes. So meiosis 2 doesn't actually fully finish until the sperm fertilizes the egg, and that triggers the finish of meiosis 2. So here you can see the process and where it happens, and ovulation and fertilization and so on, where they happen. So not all organisms use haploid and diploid stages in the same way. Here you can see a couple of different life cycles of different types of organisms. So one of the things that can vary is which stage is the dominant stage of the haploid stage or the diploid stage. In most animals, it's the diploid stage. In some plants, maybe 50-50. In some simpler organisms, it may be the haploid stage that's the dominant stage. But they're still going to alternate back and forth. And this is a must, or it has to happen in order for sexual reproduction to occur. So how does it happen? In a woman, it starts with a cell with 46 chromosomes. It goes through meiosis. You get an egg with 23 chromosomes, and you get your 3 polar bodies. In men, you start with 46. You get 4 sperm cells with 23 chromosomes each. So haploid, half as many as in the normal body cells. So those body cells, we call those somatocells. They're diploid, 2 copies of each chromosome. Gametes, sperm and egg, are haploid, 1 copy of each. So that and that happens through meiosis, like I said, and then during fertilization, the diploid number is restored when we have the 2 haploid cells fusing into 1 cell. We call that a zygote, or fertilized egg. And then it starts to divide, goes through all the stages, and we get a new human being, and that's going to be the result of mitosis. This is kind of how we build a new person. So last thing I want to talk about in this video is the difference between mitosis and meiosis, or similarities as well. So they both have those stages: prophase, metaphase, anaphase, telophase, but mitosis happens in somatocells and meiosis happens in gametes, in germ cells. Mitosis produces clones. They're identical to each other. They are identical to the parent cell. They're diploid, and there's 2 of them produced for each cell that goes through mitosis. It's for asexual reproduction. It's for growth, development, and for repair. Meiosis happens in the gonads, produces sperm and egg cells only. It's for sexual reproduction only. Creates variability through crossing over, independent assortment, random fertilization. At the end of meiosis, you get 4 daughter cells that are haploid. If it's in a man, you get 4 spermatid. In a woman, you get 1 egg or ovum and 3 polar bodies. Here you can kind of see the differences here that I just talked about.